before us that are. Okay, got it. And there's also a strong internal candidate, Deputy Superintendent Susanna Cordova, who's been at the district for a little bit more than a year. She comes from Denver as the former superintendent there. And we do have a good pool of potential candidates as well. The timeline is tentatively set for a June decision. And in the next couple of weeks, I believe it will be on April 5th, more information to follow, but I'm going to hold a community meeting by Zoom to get input from the constituents in East Dallas about what they would like to see in a new superintendent. The next thing I wanted to mention is just the mask mandates that has been lifted in Dallas ISD. Dallas ISD has had lower rates of infections than the districts that did not have mask mandates. It's been a very controversial issue with good people, being rational, but coming up with different opinions. Just yesterday, the appeals court in the state of Texas ruled in favor of the districts. There's some controversy over whether the districts had the authority to impose mask mandates, and the Court of Appeals ruled in favor of the school districts. But even that, the legal issues have been debatable. The whole policy of masks has been debatable. But fortunately, it appears at least at this window of time that the masks are not needed. We don't know what's going on with BA2 and whether anything like that will change. I have no special insight into that, but for now, masks are recommended but not required. So I wanted to just kind of give a little bit of an overview. When I was running for the board back in 2012, so 10 years ago at this time, I was knocking on doors and talking to some of you, and we were in a situation where Bryan Adams High School, the biggest high school in East Dallas, was rated academically unacceptable for 4 years in a row. And Woodrow was rated academically unacceptable for 1 year, and Conrad High School, also in the East Dallas area in Vickery Meadow, was rated academically unacceptable. All these schools are doing phenomenally well now. Bryan Adams earned 7 out of 7 distinctions from the Texas Education Agency, and so did Woodrow. Conrad High School earned 4 out of the 7 academic distinctions. So these schools are really doing quite well. Bryan Adams in particular was on the edge of being closed and reconstituted. You had 5 F years in a row. They closed the school, replaced the staff, and start all over again. So now we've come a long way in that period of time. But one of the things that I wanted to stress is, having listened to all of you over the years about the importance of vocational education, as a lot of us old timers call it, career and technical education, as it's known in the school districts, CTE. We've brought back career training in a big way, and in East Dallas and Bryan Adams, for example, students can attend one of the 4 career centers that we have in each quadrant of the city. The career center east is the one that the Bryan Adams students will attend, and the way it works is that they will be Bryan Adams students. They will participate in all the activities, but they will take career training, hands-on education at the career. So they will go to Bryan Adams in the morning. They'll leave Bryan-Adams at night. They'll participate in all the extracurricular activities, but then they will go to the Career Center during the middle of the day to get the hands-on apprentice-like training that is so necessary. And these include areas such as construction, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, interior design, cybersecurity, patient tech, and patient care tech, and pharmacy tech. So and that's just Bryan-Adams. There are a lot of other offerings at other schools. We've got industry partners, and we have industry certifications. And I have some stats I'll give you in a second on that. But we heard the message, and we brought back vocational education in a bigger way than ever before. And these pathways have been designed to address the high needs areas in our community, and to ensure that our kids can graduate from high school and earn high wages right out of high school. We have another amazing program. It's an early college program. It's known as by the acronym PTEC. And what that does is it allows students in high school to earn community college credit while they're in high school, and to graduate from high school with both a high school diploma in one hand and a college degree from Dallas College. In the Bryan-Adams case, it would be Eastfield College, or the Eastfield campus of Dallas College. But at the time of the high school graduation, you'd have a high school diploma in one hand and a college degree, an associate's degree in the other. I mean, this is just an amazing opportunity for kids. It is at no cost to the families. It's, of course, obviously, or by the taxpayers, but it is at no cost to the families, and it is going to be game changing for so many of our kids. And I want to share one statistic with you that is just amazing. 10 years ago, 10 years ago, I'm sorry, we've got somebody coming in the door here. The number of students who had a college degree after 6 years was only 7% of the graduates from the class of in this case 2009 is the year we're using. In contrast, just in 2021, the last class that graduated, 10% of those students already have college degrees. And that number will rise as this program expands. We're still in the early years of it, but 10% of our graduates from 2021 already have college degrees. So amazing turnaround for Dallas ISD. I also wanted to talk about the construction going on. The taxpayers approved in 2020 $3.5 billion of new construction and renovations. It was approved by in several packages because there were 5 propositions on the ballot, but and 3 of them passed, and they passed with about 51% in one case and 52% in the other cases of the vote. So they were close call elections, but they are making an amazing difference in our schools, and you can see all the excitement going on. Our kids deserve the same quality facilities as kids in the suburbs, and thanks to the voters of Dallas, they will soon have them. We've long had schools that were in very poor condition and very substandard condition. They looked very, very unappealing, and they were not suited for a first-class education. And families in the suburbs would sneer at our facilities. And I will tell you that creating these positive learning environments with open spaces and with state of the art facilities and energy conservation, all of this is going to do a lot to improve the atmosphere and the environment for a first-class education. So, for example, since Bryan Adams is a common unifying thread, I'll focus a little bit. I've been focusing a little bit more on that school. That school is going to have a fine arts edition, a competition gym, a 2-level classroom edition, and updates to the auditorium, the library and media center, and all of our schools will have security updates throughout. These are all very, very important. These schools will be brighter and they'll be more spacious, and it's just going to make an amazing difference. If you drive past Bryan Adams today, you can see that the construction is nearing completion, and it will be completed in time for next year. The plan is to open it all up next year, which is only what 6 months from now, 5 months from now. So it's coming along nicely, and I would encourage you to take a look at it if you have a chance to drive by Milmar. We have updates being done to every one of our schools in the way of security. Cameras, our door contacts, secure vestibules, to help enhance the safety of our students and staff. The 3 most aging and East Dallas elementary schools on the east side of the lake, and they're in the worst physical condition based on facilities condition analysis that was done several years ago. The 3 worst ones are going to be replaced with new buildings. It's cheaper to build a building than to try to renovate a building that is in very, very bad condition. And the 3 that I'm referring to are Keast, which is, I guess, across the street from Mike, and that is in the design process, as well as Hexter and Riley. And I will say, Keast looks like it needs to be replaced, and Hexter looks like it needs to be replaced. Riley's a prettier school, but the insides of it are awful. And when you talk about these schools that were built in the 1950s and that are essentially falling apart. Remember, back in the 1950s, when they built these schools, they didn't have air conditioning built into them, and so they have these really low ceilings because when the air conditioning was ultimately installed, they had no place to put it other than to lower the ceilings in the hallways. And so these schools are going to be fabulous, and they're going to do a lot to entice families to come to those schools, send their kids to their schools, and they'll be just great learning environments with the most modern technology, the most energy efficient technology, and they'll be beautiful. So they're all 3 in design, as I mentioned, and then we have many other schools across East Dallas and across the district that are being renovated. Gill just had some major renovations, as well as Casa View Elementary. There'll be renovations at Truett and Connor and Bales. In fact, all of our schools will now have what is called these secure vestibules. They're kind of like outer entrance areas to make sure that when someone comes to the school, they are in a secure area before. So they're inside the building, but in a secure area before they can come into the main part of the school. So I know I've been talking for the 20 minutes, so I will stop there, and I know you all have some questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's all It's great information. I know Mike is happy to hear that the school across the street is being replaced with a prettier one that he can look out at. But I'll go ahead and I'll kick it off, and talk to the big issue. What's the biggest thing that you're looking for in a replacement for a superintendent? Superintendent Hinojosa has done a great job. What do you see as the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities in your superintendent search?
Yeah, so when you put together a superintendent profile, and we are going to do that with community input, as I said, tentatively there's an April 5th meeting that I'm going to host to do that, and the other trustees will be hosting them. There'll also be online surveys, and the first thing is to get the community's input as to what they want to see superintendent. And the way they do it, I mean, everybody wants to see an honest person, a good communicator, right? Someone with a track record of success and so forth. And the way they do these surveys, they ask you to rank the 3 or 4 things that you think are most important. Is bilingual one of the 3 or 4, and so forth. But it's all the things that you can imagine as a good characteristic that you want a superintendent to have, and then it's consolidated. It's with the surveys. I mean, personally, I want to see a superintendent who has the ability to work as part of a team with others, who has a demonstrated record of success, who can bring the community together. This is being superintendent of Dallas is a very difficult job. It's we have so many challenges in Dallas ISD. 90% of our kids are growing up in poverty. We have diverse neighborhoods. We have a racial history in this city that is certainly not one to be proud of. We have 45% of our kids who do not speak English as their first language. So there are a lot of challenges here, and so we do have to get the right person. I would like to see someone who has demonstrated the ability to move the needle for kids in high poverty school districts. And I will certainly be listening to what we find out from the community meetings and the surveys. But I think it's important to get the right person. In big urban school districts, superintendents do not last more than 3 years as a general rule, and that's almost no time to do anything. And so for superintendent to survive, the board has to be the kind of board that understands its role and understands the need to give the administration the ability to actually implement a plan. So I will say with Dr. Hinojosa, I've disagreed with him on a number of things, but if you move to fire the superintendent every time you disagree with something he's done, you're just going to be rotating superintendents in and out, and you're going to just have instability. So it does take a board attitude that there needs to be some sort of deference. When reasonable minds differ, the benefit of the doubt. You want to have a person that you can give the benefit of the doubt to as a superintendent, rather than try to insert your own position when reasonable minds can differ. And that's a hard thing to do, but that's part of the reason why Hinojosa has lasted as long as he has, is that the board has kind of understood that you cannot have a revolving door of superintendents like we in Dallas ISD and expect anything to actually get done. And so I'm going to try to get the best person we can and try to support them, in every way that I can. I'm not going to suppress my disagreements, but I'm not going to be in a situation where I'm going to act like a lot of board members in other districts where they're getting rid of their superintendent on every 2 or 3 years, and that is not going to be good for the district. So
It's shocking that a superintendent would be able to get, one high school class through graduation, less than 4 years. That's a shocking statistic.
Exactly, and I do think it has to do with the mindset of boards. I mean, all you have to do to be on the board is be over 21 and get 51% of the vote. You don't need to know anything about anything else. And if you're not willing to understand your role, understand the role of a superintendent, pick the right guy and try to support him, you're going to have that cycle of turnover that is not going to be good for kids.
Right. And instability at the top, breeds instability at the bottom for sure. I do have several other questions, but wanted to turn it over to the folks on the call if there are any questions from the participants here. Mike, Fred, Denise. Fred, go ahead.
I completely agree, Dan, on remodeling or replacing schools that are outdated. Example, I went to Robert E. Lee, which is Geneva Heights, but I also went to Woodrow. And I went to Woodrow when there was no air conditioning. And the key was there was only one room that had air conditioning, and that was the library. But it was also detention hall. So guess where I went most of the time?
It wasn't the library.
Correct. And
sure, that's why you went to detention hall, Fred.
it was all because of air conditioning. And I'm still amazed at how many schools today, like you were saying, have to lower the roofs just to get air conditioning in. Wow.
Yeah.
That's why I was intentional too, Fred, because they had air conditioning there. That's right. It wasn't anything else I did. I just
And now the kids say, raise the roof. That's what they say.
See, I just went to the library like a good guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Where was the library? I didn't know where the library was.
Brad, did you have a question?
Denise actually had hers before me. Go ahead, Denise. I'll defer.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you. I did have a question about 2 topics and was hoping to get just sort of a high level overview of like where we stand on the topics to date. One of them is school discipline. I know that Dallas ISD made a sort of a groundbreaking decision to not penalize like children and put them in sort of detention or suspension, and figured out a different way of kind of doing discipline. And I know that there's been conversations about how that's being rolled out. Was wondering if you guys had, if Dan, you had any insight as to where you stand on that issue, and if there are any updates from the board on where that's going and how that's actually being rolled out from an operation standpoint. I know that I sit on the community advisory board for the racial equity office. It's something that we were briefed on, but I know that there was ongoing discussions and don't really know where that fell. The second one that I had a question about was just funds. I know that COVID has impacted our children in the district on a variety of levels. And I think everyone's concern is just making sure that the students are getting back on track with regards to academics, and that we're closing sort of the learning gap that has occurred because of COVID, and was hoping that you had some insights as to what this district is doing to kind of help mitigate that. And then also give an update on the ARPA funds that kind of came from the Fed to school districts, and how we're using that money to kind of close the gap.
Okay, lot of broad topics there. So let me just say, with respect to discipline, the district in the last few years has moved towards a goal of ensuring that we do not suspend students except for those situations of violence that are required by statute. So the point here being that when a child is suspended, they're not learning, they're falling further behind, their attitude is getting worse, and they come back to class. They're an out of school suspension. They're at home. They're not learning. They could be getting into trouble, and that the goal is to keep them in school and keep them learning. We have reset centers within the schools to help get them on track. We have counselors who are trained to deal with this issue. We put more resources into this area to try to make sure that we don't continue to further increase the pipeline to prison that we've all heard so much about, that when kids are not succeeding academically and they get suspended, that they're many more times likely to end up in prison and in other unsuccessful, unhappy situations. So the goal here is to use the most advanced social and emotional learning techniques that have been developed to try to make sure that we get kids on track, figure out what's wrong with them, what they need, so that they can be in school and continue to learn. And we've taken a big bite off at once. We want to eliminate it at all levels. We did eliminate for pre-K to second grade a few years ago, but then the big chunk is everything else that we've banned suspensions, again, other than for those violent type offenses that are required by statute. But we want our kids to be to stay in school. We want them to continue to learn. And there have been bumps along the way, because in some places we don't have as much support as we need. There was discussion of having the more serious cases that fall short of the violence being sent to a central reset center, and where we would have the most trained professionals to help deal with those cases. But there's some pushback on that we can't let that be a way to dilute what our goal is, which is to make sure that every kid every kid's need is met at his or her home campus with trained professionals. And that's still the goal of the board and goal of the administration. We are pioneering this because traditionally it's just been so easy for a teacher to say, I've tried to work with this child. This child is disrupting the learning of other kids. I want him suspended and out of my room so that the other kids can learn. And we've tried to train the teachers to better manage situations like that and provide the support on the campuses so that when the teacher, having been trained, still can't handle it, it can be handled at the campus level. So it's a very important issue for us. There are lots of racial disparities in the suspension data that have existed for a long time, and we think, as part of our commitment to equity, that we need to make sure that every child's needs are met, and that we reduce suspensions, hopefully to zero, and ban all discretionary suspensions. That's where we're at now. We're still kind of working through how to make it all work, and it's largely successful, but not completely successful. And then with respect to the learning loss issues, there's no doubt that our kids have lost ground compared to where they would have been if we didn't have 2 years of COVID. And the ways that it's being addressed is there's a lot of federal funds that have been made available, and we are doing things like extended school years for certain campuses. We have tutoring that is required for kids who are behind on their state testing. We've got a lot more social and emotional support and counseling for kids. It's going to be a difficult challenge, because I think our kids, as I said earlier, 90% of our kids are economically disadvantaged. I think our kids have suffered the most as compared to other districts where the ratio of economically disadvantaged kids is not as high. And so we are going to be doing all the after school programming is extremely important as well. I think when we start seeing the results of the state testing, we're going to be very disappointed in how much learning has been lost. All the preliminary indicators are that high poverty school districts in particular show a great deal of learning loss, but generally a great deal of learning loss across the board, regardless of income and socioeconomic status. So, another question.
Yeah, that's certainly it's a unique and fairly unprecedented challenge for school districts to overcome. So again, anything that the East Dallas business community can do to foster those relationships and aid DISD where we can, we're open to any of those discussions possible. Brad, you had your hand up?
Yeah, hi, Dan. Thanks again for being here today. I had one comment and then another question. The comment was I would like to try to work, and we can work on offline at a later point, but I'd like to find a way that the East Dallas Chamber can help serve as somewhat of a facilitator for internship programs among our chamber member businesses. We've got a lot of different businesses represented by the chamber, and I'd love to find a way that we can kind of work with DISD to set up at least access to. I don't necessarily think we need to be hand-holding the process, but access to internship programs for those DISD students that are interested in working with some of those businesses.
Would love to do that, and happy to talk with you offline on it and get that going. We're eager to do that.
Excellent, thanks. So I wrote down a couple of things from your initial comments, but the one that stuck out, can you talk a little bit more about the vocational education? What percentage of DISD students that are there, and you may have to get back to me on this, but ballpark, what percentage are utilizing that, and how can we go about, and this is the community, we go about eliminating the stigma of vocational education and not going to a 4-year school, because I think we all, hopefully all on this call, know that a 4-year college is not necessarily for everybody.
Yeah, so we have been making a lot of progress in our industry certifications. Prior to 2020, the number of industry certifications in our quote vocational education programs was under 1%. It was at 2% in 2020, 3% in 2021, 6% in 2022 is what we have, and we are looking at, as these career centers now start opening, up to 25% for 2023.
Wow.
And that graduating seniors in 2023, that's just next year,
Right.
because of the things that it's already in the works. It takes a while for for the numbers to start show at the end, but we're projecting that the Dallas ISD in graduating seniors in 2023 will be at 24%, and we have a goal for 2024 at 37%.
That's
And
incredible.
this program is going to take off. We just got zoning approval a few months ago for the Career Center in the north, which will be located at the old Walnut Hill Elementary school that was blown away by a tornado. And after a long, torturous battle, zoning was approved for that. And so that'll give us the 4th career center that we can build out over there, and it'll make it easier to manage the way we want to manage it with a community center in each of the 4. I mean a career center in each of the 4 quadrants. But
that's incredible. Is that so? I mean, that seems incredibly high, in a good way. Are there other similarly sized districts throughout the country that are having that level of success that you've kind of been able to mirror, or is this kind of groundbreaking?
Well, let me say it is groundbreaking for Dallas ISD, and in that for those of us who are longtime Dallas residents who 10 years ago would look at Dallas ISD and think everything's broken, nothing works. Dallas ISD is viewed around the nation as an innovative district, as a leader, and not only with our career institutes, but the P-Tech program, the early college program that I was talking about earlier. We have the largest early college program in the nation, the largest P-Tech program in the nation, and a lot of districts are now starting to come to Dallas ISD for advice on how to set up these programs. So and it's a very popular program. There's not stigma for being part of these programs. These early college programs are thought of as golden opportunities for families to send their first generation college kids to school and get started and moving into the middle class. So we're really proud of it, and we these are only a couple of the initiatives. I didn't talk about our dual language programs, where we have one of the largest two-way dual language programs in the country. And again, we're being copied on that. People come to Dallas ISD to find out how we've done that. Our robotics program is world class. Our robotics teams are winning national awards and international awards.
Well, that I've got a myriad of other questions. I know Jonathan had some too, so I'll save it and I'll touch base with you on the some of the others. But I just want to congratulate you and the other trustees for all of the work that you've done to get DISD to this level. So I'll be quiet now, Jonathan. Back to you.
And there's a historic moment that Brad has agreed to be quiet. I'm glad we're recording here. But I'll let John's got his hand up if you want to ask a question.
Hi, Dan. You were mentioning Brian Adams, and I've watched the ripple effects through the neighborhood as that school has improved, so has our surrounding neighborhood. But there is a lot of construction there. What are some of the amenities that are going to be there once the construction is completed?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit earlier, but there is going to be a competition gym that will hold 2,000 students, a fine arts center that is it's actually already been built. It's not opened yet. It's being refinished. Classroom additions. The school will be lighter and brighter. There'll be more courtyard space, more open air space, safety features. If you drive by it, it'll look like a new school. There'll be parts of the school that look, historic, but even inside, there's been a number of renovations that that make the school look and feel like a new school. And it's long overdue for that school. Take a drive by there and you'll see the front entrance that looks phenomenal. The library and media center is fantastic, and you can see that on one of the walls they have this I guess it's a mural of some kind that looks great, and it goes back to 1957 with lots of different images of the history of the school. They've done a good job incorporating the history of the school with the modern updates to the school.
Yeah, it's looking great. Thank you.
And thanks for your support, John.
Dan, I've got a question. I've been getting some pretty good feedback or pushback on you mentioned it earlier. Is there one search firm or are there two? I just am getting a lot of questions as to why, when, and how that even happened.
Well, that is, there's one search firm.
Okay.
We've never paid for two search firms. There's always been one search firm, and you're looking at some of the raw politics of Dallas ISD. When people lose votes, they don't like to lose votes, and they go to the media to try to spin it like the people who were in support of two firms were just going to pay double for it. I mean, that's just nonsense. So here's why two firms were considered, and that is because some firms, including the firm that backed out, will not present a candidate that they have placed in another district. So that means that you make an indirect, if you hire, let's say the first firm was the greatest firm ever, and they hired and they presented and got hired 50 superintendents at other districts. Those 50 now come off the table if you only have them. So the idea of two was to divide the work so that, one could do the national search, the other could do the Texas search. I mean, the dividing of professional services is done all the time. It's not a duplication of fees. And, as a lawyer, I've done national representation and Texas representation, tax representation, those kinds of things. You divide up the work. A broker, you go to buy the house, and there's going to be a 6% commission, but if the buyer has a broker and the seller has a broker, sure, it's not a 12% commission. They divide up the 6%. So that was really an insulting editorial that came out that really was shallow, and the editorial board just published what one of the complaining trustees gave them, and that's my view.
Okay. Well, appreciate the clarification on some of that.
Yeah, that is great clarification, and superintendent of DISD schools is a prime job. It's a very difficult job, as you mentioned, but it is a fantastic position to be awarded, and so any candidate in the United States should be up for that if they're qualified enough. Well, it's getting close to 1. Dan, I didn't know if you had any kind of closing thoughts or anything like that, but we really do appreciate having you on. Appreciate the offer to do it more regularly. We appreciate your leadership and your work, and of course, all the staff and educators in DISD. I mean, it's oftentimes a thankless job. I was a teacher for 1 year and I couldn't hack it. It's too much for me, and so my hat's off to everybody in DISD.
Well, thank you. I just want to thank everybody on this call and the Greater East Dallas Chamber generally for supporting our students. It's been tough the last 2 years in particular, but it's a hard job for our teachers and educators and staff, even in the absence of COVID. And what we are trying to do is make sure that every child who comes into our schools will graduate with the opportunity to become productive citizens, become part of the middle class. We have so many kids who are growing up economically disadvantaged. It's our mission to help change the trajectory of their lives so that they can become middle class and they can thrive to the maximum extent possible. So I thank you really all for your support. Dallas ISD is the most improved district in Texas, and it large part it has to do with the community support that we get from organizations like this one and from you all personally. So thank you very much.
We really appreciate it, sir. And just to plug, on Tuesday, Brad has put together our luncheon for next week, Tuesday at 11:45 at Liquid Country Club, a panel on retirement finances. It's going to be a great discussion. Definitely something that you don't want to miss. Fantastic information. And next leg committee, I'll be sending out our speaker and our schedule. Again, Dan, thank you so much for joining us today and for the fantastic information.
Thank you all. Happy to do it again whenever you want.
Dan, thank you, Dan.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.